So today's topic is the extension of the previous discussion that we had a couple of weeks back, and I was requested by our temple president. He asked me to take the part 2 of that. And so last week, a couple of weeks, we discussed about the identity crisis. So we'll touch upon that a little bit, but primarily we'll discuss about mind. Is mind our friend or enemy? And is it possible to control mind? How many of you think that mind is a problem or mind is good? Any thoughts and comments? What? If you say, we. Very nice, thank you. Anybody has any other? Yes, Mataji. Yes, how we control. How many of you were here during Japa session that we did few minutes back? How many of were you able to actually control mind? My mind was going everywhere else. I was actually making my office to-do list doing Japa, which I should not be. But it was very hard for me to bring it back again and again. Come back, come back. We are chanting in the temple room. You can't go anywhere. So let's take, let's look at Krishna's opinion about mind. This is especially very important actually it's important for everybody, but especially for youth who are either going to college or school. And, there is a lot of distraction today. There's so much of distraction available on our fingertips that it has become much more difficult to control mind, and which is also causing a lot of other health issues, both at a physical level and mental level. So let me start with the prayer. I put prayer here so that if you don't know, you can sing along. This is prayers to the Guru and Guru Parampara. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Anamilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamayam Dadatim Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Kamalam Shri Rupam Sagadam. Oh, can you help? Sorry, I'm going to go back to my script here. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu bhaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Binda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So in chapter 6, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna and Arjuna having a conversation, and that is where the conversation around mind comes. In this verse, we can do lead and follow. Bandhuratma manastasya yena tatve yenat mevatmana jitah anatmanastu shatrutve varte tatmeva shatruvatah. Translation: for him who has conquered the mind is the best of friends, but for one who has failed to do so, his mind will remain the greatest enemy. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The purpose of practicing eightfold yoga is to control the mind in order to make it a friend in discharging the human mission. Unless the mind is controlled, the practice of yoga for show is simply a waste of time. One who cannot control his mind lives always with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and admissions are spoiled. The constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of the superior. As long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of the personality, one has to serve the dictations of the lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc. But when the mind is conquered, one voluntarily agrees to abide by the dictations of the personality of Godhead, who is situated within the heart of everyone as Paramatma. Real yoga practice entails meeting the Paramatma within the heart and then following his dictation. For one who takes to Krishna consciousness directly, perfect surrender to the dictation of the Lord follows automatically. So Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that one who cannot control his mind lives with the greatest enemy, and thus his life and missions are spoiled. And the constitutional position of the living entity is to carry out the order of superiors. As a consequence, as long as one's mind remains an unconquered enemy, one has to serve the dictations of the lust, anger, avarice, illusion, etc. And so what happens is, and I'll share some of the realizations from my side and in my learning during this time. Today, in this world where we live, we are actually bombarded with a lot of information, a lot of education, a lot of data, which is constantly coming to us, either in form of media, in form of social media, in form of people sharing their thoughts, or even in the education system that we learn things. There are two kinds of education systems that are available today in this material world. And I'll straight away go to, some reason my slides are not working, so I'll go to here directly. There are two types of education that are defined in our Vedic system. One is called Apara Vidya and other is called Para Vidya. Apara Vidya is the material knowledge that we all gain during this lifetime through our schools, colleges, family members, extended community. And the Apara Vidya, both are important, by the way. Apara Vidya actually helps us to just go through the material life, which is really between birth and death. Somehow we have to live, we have to do things, and for that we need some education to maintain this body. That is called Apara education. It is literally a temporary arrangement to get from birth to death. That is our journey. It's like you can think of this as palliative care. Everybody knows what is palliative care? You're laughing. You want to share? Palliative care is a care for people who are very close to leaving the body. Then they are given a care so that they are in less pain. It's not that somebody can treat them. It is just reduce the pain so that they can die comfortably. But actually the whole life is like a palliative care, because once we are born, we are going to die. And so any activity we do in between birth and death is actually a palliative care on material platform, because everything will be taken away when we leave the body. Our education, our fame, our health, our money, our relationships, etc., everything. So that is temporary in nature. Does that make sense so far? Okay. Paravidya is actually learning related to the self, and this knowledge helps us grow through life beyond this birth. And that is why this is extremely important that we include this Paravidya also in our life. Otherwise, what happens? Everything that we work so hard to get these degrees, to get this money, to get everything that we have today, which is at the material platform, at a level of mind, actually is temporary and taken away. And we work so hard. Imagine you work so hard to build that beautiful house, but you really don't get to live there. Somebody else lives there. Imagine you build such a wonderful bank balance thinking that you're going to leave it for your children, and then they have, their other significant others, and they do whatever they want to do if they get the money from you. So that is the nature of the material world. And apara vidya primarily feeds to the mind, and para vidya helps us feed the intelligence. So first of all, let's get few things very clear here. Mind is not brain. Right? Brain is part of the physical body, which is made of 5 elements, gross elements. Mind is part of the subtle body. Let me see if I have view of it so I can show you. Sorry about this. You're going to see too much, but I will show you this. So this is how our body looks like, that is described in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. There are 3 primary layers. The outer body is called the gross body, which is made of these 5 elements, which are earth, water, fire, air, ether. And the brain is part of this. So at the time of death, brain is gone. In medical terms also, even if you are on ventilator, as soon as brain stops working, you can be on ventilator for some time, but doctor says you are dead. Clinically, we are dead. Then there is a body inside that called subtle body, which is made of 3 elements: mind, intelligence, and false ego. And then the real self called soul, that is us, Atma. And so what happens is, at the time of death, the gross body and soul travels to the next body and next destination. And based on our desires, in what consciousness did we leave the body, we get our next body. We covered this previously, but I wanted to cover as a summary so that we can understand the function of mind and what Bhagavad Gita tells us how to control that. Now here's something very important to understand. It says mind, intelligence, and false ego there, right, in the yellow part of it. What is that? Mind, we understand, minds are the things which are really composed of all desires that we have. I want this, I want to do this, I want to have this, I want to do this, without knowing whether it is good for us or not. How do we decide it is good for us or not? That is where intelligence comes into play, which is higher than mind in the hierarchy. But if we choose to feed mind, we still have choice, by the way, right? We have a choice. We can choose to feed our mind, or we can choose to feed intelligence. Every time we do something, we know we are doing good or we are doing bad. So my Guru Maharaj explains that we have 2 dogs, a good dog and a bad dog. Whatever dog you feed, that dog becomes strong. And whatever we don't feed becomes weak and weak and weak. So if we decide to feed only our desires and ignore the intelligence, then intelligence will become weak. But intelligence is what helps us decide what should be the good desire. The ego part. What is ego? Or what is false ego here? You want to tell me? Go ahead. Huh? Ego means pride, yes. In this what is the pride here? In this picture, if you know this. Oh, okay. So, what it means really is, we have a consciousness which we can understand from the material perspective and on a spiritual perspective. So, the false ego is something which makes us understand our identity incorrectly. A simple example is that these identities are based on our bodily needs and bodily relationships. Remember, we already discussed that anything that is based on body is temporary, perishable, and at the time of death, it is all taken away. So, Sometimes we have our identity based on our social titles, our possessions and wealth, our fame, our family, our health. These becomes our identity on a material platform. As an example, if you're driving a very expensive, nice and shiny car, suddenly, and you are the driver of the car, but we identify ourselves and the people around us identify ourselves with that car. Or if you have a big, very opulent house, that this is Mr. or Miss so-and-so. And if that is taken away, I feel that everything is gone from my life now. And that is what mind does to us. That is when we choose to feed the mind, we get these false identities. And that is why throughout our life, most of the time, we are actually disappointed, stressed. Anxiety happens because we live with this false identity all our life. What are some of the latest examples is we talk about this most often, but it's very common, yet we keep getting into the trap of it, is our social media identities. Our mind tells us that if I don't have so many likes, then my life is not worth living. Our mind tells us if my post is not seen by so many people, if I don't have so many followers, my life is useless. The fake news is part of it, right? So many things happen on the media. And so mind plays these games when we continue to feed the mind. And that is why very important to understand what Krishna is explaining in Bhagavad Gita, that our real identity is actually the soul. And in 2.20, I'll read it here, it's on the board here. For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever-existing, primeval. He is not slain when body is slain. That is our true identity. Once we understand that, then it is extremely easy to live in this material world and deal with ups and downs of life. Mind will not overtake. Mind will get intelligence, and then we will have the right desires, and we can deal with it. Things will not change. We will still have ups and downs, but we will have an intelligence to deal with it properly and live happily. Are we good so far here? So now I'm going to go back to some of these things. What happens, I don't know why I have this animation, but sorry about that. What really happens with uncontrolled mind, and what can it do to all of us, right? It creates lack of confidence, loss of trust, madness, diseases, depression, stress, hypertension, etc., etc. All of us know that. And this is so much so in the community today, in the environment today, that right in the school, we can see this is happening. I don't know how many of you have kids who go to middle school here. Any middle schoolers here, parents? When my kids were in middle school a few years back, I received a lot of emails from a school saying that, hey, can you join for the suicide prevention workshops? Right? And my question was always that why sixth grader need to know what is the need of this suicide prevention workshop in middle school? But it is there. Right? And so why it is there? Because from all around, from 360 degrees, even the sixth grader is getting this false perception in our community and society that this is your material identity and this is how you have to live, and if you don't have this, your life is not worth living. 8th grade, if you don't have a girlfriend and boyfriend, you are a loser. I'm not kidding. If you have 8th graders, you can talk to them. If they don't tell you, ask them. Or ask somebody else in the school. To overcome, they come up with very innovative ways in the school. Vape is very common. When you go to schools, it is filled with that. There are a lot of different ways they do that. They sell cookies and things like that filled with stuff that you don't even want to know. As soon as they go to ninth grade, they're exposed to hundreds and hundreds of things. So that is how it is. Not just school, but even office environment. Sometimes in relationships, we have the similar issues, right? So what happens with that? What is the result of that? Today we are seeing some of these things, what you see here on the board, pretty much very prevalent in the society. Every day you open the news, this is exactly what is happening, only because there is no education to control the mind. School system are not teaching. In fact, the whole system is actually putting a fuel into it more and more. So let's take a step back. When we are, when we send all of these are wonderful people. Some of the people that, we look forward to, what you see on the screen, they have done phenomenal things in the life of people. They are very successful people. But what is going inside their heart? We see them as very successful people. We see them, they are in so much of control. We see them, wow, look at them. This is success. This is how I have to train myself. This is what I want to be. But if you look at inside their mind, inside what mind has done to them, it is very painful. It has agitated them so much that some of them have committed suicide, what you see on this board. Some of them have left the families. Some of them make the statement, these wonderful players, so many of them. This is just one example. Now, this does not mean that only people who are successful go through this. The reason I have these pictures is because to make a point that we all want to become like them, thinking that we will be very happy. But they are also chasing exactly same thing, what we as a normal middle class people trying to chase, that happiness. If mind is not trained properly, then we will never get that happiness. And so we send our kids to school, but see what happens. We think that, they finish their PhD, now they are going to be, I know there are some PhD people here probably. We think that they're going to be very happy, whatever education they get. They're going to have good jobs, etc. But really what is happening is right from beginning, if some of your kids are going to college, you see them in 12th grade. They have so much of stress of college application. If they're in college, they have so much of stress of college-related things. If they're in school, they have so much other stresses, social media, etc. It is phenomenal to see how much we have bombarded to this mind which is not able to handle it. And so what happens? Then we try to meditate. With so much going on around the world, so much we have been bombarded with, then we want to meditate for 10 minutes sitting somewhere. Mind is out of control even in that 10 minutes. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjun says the same thing, that I can stop the wind with my arrows, and literally, not figuratively. He could literally stop. He was such a great yogi and personality and archer and a fighter that he could stop the wind. But he says that I cannot control my mind. So what can we do? Any thoughts? Anybody? Do something that interests you. Okay, that's good.
That's how you can deviate what is bothering you. Because there are a lot of botherings, which you just mentioned, a lot of botherings are coming around. You cannot stop thinking. But if you stop thinking about that thing, do what you like to do, which gives you happiness.
And how long that happiness stays. Suppose I like to be on social media,
Not that kind of thing.
or I like to eat something, and I keep eating. After a while, what will happen? Can I continue to have that happiness for long term?
Not that kind of thing, like a hobby.
Pick up a hobby. Tell me one thing.
Maybe gardening.
Gardening, fine. How long can you garden? 2 hours?
Become an activity which will, during that time, your mind is.
Absolutely. For a temporarily, we can do something, but we are talking about the whole life between birth and death. Are we still? How long can you do gardening anyway? Bhagavad Gita tells us that we go through 4 stages of life: birth, old age, disease, and death. At some point of time, body is going to give up. You cannot even sit to do gardening, right? I appreciate, I'm not picking on you. I'm saying that I agree with you that temporarily we can pick up certain things to do something. But is that a permanent solution? I can say that I like to travel. Maybe I'll go somewhere and see something. But is that going to solve my problem with my mind? Mind is amazing. It's an amazing thing. You can be anywhere sitting right here in the temple hall. Isn't that amazing? You can be doing anything sitting here right in the temple hall. And we are looking at Sri Sri Radha Kalachandji here, and we are thinking of somebody else. Same thing, you think that 6th grader, when he has or she has a phone in his hand, and Prabhuji, Gokulan, Prabhu and I were talking the other day that this finger is really messy finger. It points to other people, and when we have screen, this is the finger that can take you from whatever on this to the entire world right on your screen and distract you, and suddenly you have lost 3 hours from your homework time or study time there, or your office time. And instead of sleeping at 10 p.m., now you're sleeping at 1 a.m. in the morning or 2 a.m. in the morning. That is what mind does, because we choose to feed mind something that makes it stronger and intelligence weaker. Right? A lot of things happen. Some of these examples here, you can read it, but these are the thoughts keep going in the mind all the time. It creates jealousy, envy. I want to have everything. How can my neighbor has it? How can other person has it? I should have it. On the face of it, we can say that it's nice, but this is exactly what is happening in many of the people's life. This is the data I collected on the left, left side of the screen. These points, after talking to a lot of youth. You know what is FANG, right? If kid is not getting internship at one of these things, the life is not worth living. That's the thought that goes in parents' mind. So there is no end to it. This is a beautiful paper I read from Harvard Medical School, which talks about that anxiety disorders are among the most common mental illnesses affecting around 40 million American adults each year. Now this is 2021. It is much more post-COVID. It has increased significantly. And it also says very beautiful thing that, a special section delves into alternate treatment for anxiety, such as relaxation techniques, mindfulness, meditation, and biofeedback. Right? So let's take root cause of all the problems in our life. How Srila Prabhupada has explained us in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. The fundamental reason of lack of containment in this mind issue is identity crisis. Mind creates an identity crisis and false identity that we just talked about, which is based on the external factors, based on the body, based on what body accomplishes outside, which are all perishable, absolutely perishable. So when you have a perishable identity, what happens? The day I have been laid off, I've been fired from the company. I was fired in 2009 when the market dropped, and suddenly I was leading, probably 1,000 people worth of team, across southwest of US, and suddenly I was told that your job is no longer needed. I said, oh my God, I thought company can't survive without me, and my identity was gone. Like that, it happens in everybody's life, especially students. And so mind creates these identities. These are called false identity, and as a result of that, what is happening? We have bigger houses but less space for people to live. We have more degrees and less common sense. We have multiplied possessions but reduced overall value. We are cleaning the air but polluting the heart. We are not focusing on polluting our heart, cleaning our heart. So there's a beautiful verse in chapter 2. Dehino ismin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tata dehantara praptis dhiras tatra namoihati. It says that as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Why? Because the identity is not the body. Identity is the soul. So once we understand this, once we use this para vidya that we talked about, 2 educations. Apara, anybody remembers apara is for what? Material growth. Para is for spiritual growth. And if we have this para education, what happens? We can deal with apara issues throughout our life. Just because we have wonderful apara education does not mean that we will be happy all our life and everything will go according to our plan. That does not happen. And so we need this para education to understand what is the purpose of my life? Who am I? Am I going to continue working on this amazing project after I leave this body? Am I continue to have this amazing bank balance after this I leave this body? I will restart according to Srimad Bhagavad Gita. And so the soul is the one soul is our identity, and soul continues to another body. Just like a 6-year-old becomes 60-year-old in this lifetime, they don't change the body, they keep moving. That is what we need to make sure our mind understands. That is intelligence. And if we understand that, then we can deal with anything very easily. Whatever comes to us. Things are going to be very, very interesting in next few decades. I am from technology, so I deal with it. I part of the AI. So I see that. Things are going to be very, very interesting. Just thinking that technology is going to solve our problem, it is not solved in last several decades. It has given us comforts at a material level, no doubt about that. But it has not given us that common sense and intelligence how to leverage that for our true upliftment. It has still not solved our problem of death. So I want to share something very, very beautiful from a book called Nectar of Instruction. It is by amazing, very prominent spiritual scientist or spiritual genius, Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, and in 15th century. I'll say this verse: Atyahara prayashascha prajalpo niyamagraha janasangascha lalimcha shadbir bhaktir vinashyati. And he explains this 7 wonderful points. And by the way, this book is right here outside. I would highly recommend that if you can take a very thin book, only 11 verses. Bhagavad Gita has 700 verses. You should have Bhagavad Gita as well as this book. It has only 11 verses, but it tells us how to live life perfectly without any pain. So it describes 7 points, very important points. Mind is most busy in these perishable things. What is happening to mind? Look at this. Eating more than necessary. We do it all the time, right? And then we have consequences over the period of time in our life, either health or medication or more sleeping, etc. Collecting more funds than required. The mind is playing these games, right? Over endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. And this is extremely important point that I have taken to my heart, and I will talk about this in a minute. Talking unnecessary about mundane subject matters. This is where we waste our most of the time, because you ask people, okay, why don't you come for Gita class? And I am so grateful that all of you are here on Sunday evening, but there are several million people in Dallas area. They don't have to come to this temple, but how many are engaged in some spiritual activity? This is the point, talking unnecessary about mundane subject matter throughout our life. Practicing spirituality for the sake of doing it and not mean it. Many times we live our life just showing that I am doing spirituality and I am practicing it. But really in our heart, I am not transforming. Nothing is really happening. Associating with worldly minded person who are not interested in the true purpose of life. The word association is the key here. We may think that we are associating, it's fine because in the social network I have to do certain things, I have to be with somebody. But please understand, association makes and break our entire life. We'll talk about this as takeaway from today's class. I have 10 minutes, so I'm going to be faster now. Being greedy for mundane achievements. So these are the 7 points. This is text 2. So please take this book if you can. Rupamrita Sindhu Prabhu is outside. I want to make sure you all get the nectar of instruction from him today. Very small book. Oh, let's go back to point number 3. Over endeavoring for mundane things that are very difficult to obtain. This is where we spend maximum time of our life just doing this between birth and death. We pick up a challenge. Our life has to have challenge. Now I'm going to do something about that challenge. Any PhD students here still? My daughter is going for PhD, so I hope she's not here. See, why did apple fall from tree? I'm going to spend my lifetime to find out what is this theory behind it. Krishna says, I am behind it. The gravity is Krishna's material energy. We will do PhD for 6 years, 7 years, and then we'll come to conclusion that, there is some force that pulls apple down. I'm not discouraging anybody to do PhD, but I'm saying that it's just a metaphor to give an example that we pick up projects like that in our life.
But if this thing doesn't happen, then how the society become more technically advanced?
And right now we are very advanced compared to 40 years back. How's life? Why is the number of stressed people, anxiety is increasing?
The life which my parents had, that was more peaceful than we had.
Yes.
And these kids nowadays are always in front of screens.
Yes.
They're doing all that in technology.
Yes.
That is side effects. And those side effects are more overweigh what they achieve.
Yes.
I totally agree. But if we don't have that inquisitiveness in our heart to achieve things, then society will not grow.
Right. So I would pose this question back to you. Why we compromise on the highest goal? Why do we put mundane, intermediate goals in our life? Why not put the highest goal where we do research for that? And use technology. There is no problem in using technology. But you put the highest goal. Where am I going after this? I am definitely going to be old. I am definitely going to be diseased. I am definitely going to die. What can I do about this? How can I leverage AI? How can I leverage robotics? How can I leverage automation to create a framework and a platform where people can elevate their consciousness to the higher platform? If we don't do this, then what is going to happen? Already it is happening. In the factories, they're building these human-like robots so that people will stop having relationship with people. It is happening. I'm not making this up. It is happening right now. Our children especially the small one. Give me just 1 second. The small ones, you will be surprised if they are not, their significant other is going to be a robot. It is happening. It is, you might feel that it's a joke. It is happening. Yes, somebody has a comment there and here. Yes, Mataji. I don't have a mic, so you have to be louder. Yes.
A lot of women died during the childbirth, and also lack of medical advancement. A lot of people died of infections and lack of surgery availability and all of that. That's actually a useful. Even the robotics or AI data actually used to see the patterns where to advance to notice the patterns and advance the health of the people, right? So from that perspective, the advancement is useful, but whereas
absolutely. So let us extend that argument.
Misusing of it.
Yes, let us extend that argument. You did the advancement, you have this technology, now people are not dying. Babies are not dying, they are able to have better birth. Now they are living. If they don't know the purpose of how to live life and what to do during the life, what did we give to that person? It is good to use technology to get there, but then don't stop there. Now you have a reason to provide right para education to that living entity who is in this world, how to live life. Otherwise, what is the point? You just gave that person the same cycle of birth and death, maybe worse, because time is going to be really, really bad. That is the point. It's not that technology or research is a problem, but these technologists and researchers need to understand, and we as a user need to understand what is the purpose of using it. We use without purpose, that is where mind plays the game. And if we have intelligence, then we know the purpose. And that purpose is missing in our life.
Thank you.
You had a point here? Yeah. Can you pass the mic to her, please?
So my question also goes along with advancement, but in terms of the, if we are concentrating on apara, but we want to help out other people with material, like funds, like creating a shelter for animals with the money that we earn, isn't that also beneficial for both the other entity as well as yourself?
So you have a shelter, whether it is for animal or for humans. Even human shelters are there. Let me give you an example. If the child is, there's a child who is in a Texas State Fair, which is happening right next to us, right? And the child is lost. And you go there and say, okay, why are you crying? And child is just crying. You don't know what to do. You said, okay, I'm going to give you nice candy. Child will be quiet for some time. Then again starts crying. Then someone else comes, gives a plate of food. That why don't you eat this? Child will eat that, will be happy for some time, and start crying again. And it's like that people keep coming, keep giving them something. But then finally one person comes and says, okay, let me find your parent. Let me take you to your father and mother and connect them. Child stops crying completely. That is the situation when we do, these things are not wrong. These are good things. These brings us to the mode of goodness. Very, very important thing. But again, I'm saying that, there is a Sanskrit word called hetu. Hetu means the reason. Why am I doing this? Am I doing the temporary band-aid to the person? What are you going to do next day? Or day after that? Or day after, year? Or we are putting permanent band-aid? Are we giving a permanent solution? Permanent solution is that, yes, we do these shelters, but we do not forget the reason why we have to do it. We do not forget the ultimate goal of life. That has to be added. We have to bring Krishna into center. This spiritual education should be the center of our life. I'm going to fast forward this because I have only, nobody's here, so I can speak. Oh, Prabhuji. I'll take 3 more minutes. Right? So, what happens, see this chart, and you can take a picture of this, and I would really suggest that if you can do your homework on this chart, yes.
So, you just said that when the baby when somebody says that, I'll take you to the mother and father, the baby stop crying.
Yes.
Like, that's where we get an answer for ourselves, like from inside, that we are the children, and that's our father and mother.
Yes.
We connect to them, and we stop crying. That's our, like...
Absolutely. Thank you very much. You should be saying this on mic. You should be saying this on mic. No, please repeat that quickly. Here's the mic for you.
So he just gave an example of a baby who had lost her mother and father. So I found the answer for myself and for everybody, I think so, where he gave them, the baby got food and he stopped crying. And the person lastly said that, I'll find your mother and father. And the boy just stopped crying. So we are all the kids to the and that is our mother and father, the God itself.
Yeah.
So when we go to him, I think that's where we stop crying. It's all our worries goes, and at the end, it's him that we need him at the end of the point. And
Absolutely.
that's all.
Thank you very much. You actually concluded my class. So I will leave with a couple of things here. I'll take a few more minutes, Prabhuji, 3 more minutes. So if you see on this chart, you have career, financial, family, health. These 4, which is in the yellow color, these are part of our apara goals. These only takes us through life. We just go through life. We just need it, right? At the time of that, all of this is taken away. But you need to put these goals. What do I want to do in 25 years, next 50 years, and so on, right? Underlying that is the spiritual layer, which is green color. This is eternal, feeding the soul, creating the bliss at the core. And it is not impacted by ups and downs of the life. This is the layer that helps us manage the whole life, material part of it, very, very happily. We can deal with ups and downs. We can deal with market going down, going up. We can deal with losing job. We can deal with relationships very well if we have this layer ingrained right in our education system from beginning. This is intelligence. This is what needs to come so that mind can function properly. And that is the Bhagavad Gita is about. So I have a humble request that if you do not have Bhagavad Gita, please take one. It is not one per family, it is one for each individual. Even if you have a 6-year-old child, they should have their own copy of Bhagavad Gita. And make notes, read it. Go to Bhakti Vrakshas. We have Bhakti Vrakshas all over Dallas-Fort Worth area where you can go on Fridays and Saturdays. We have college programs that are happening in every college. Just join those. Your life will be so blissful. You will enjoy whether you are an engineer, doctor, or do nothing. Whatever you are doing, you will just have fun in life and also after this life. So 4 things if you want to take away to follow. So what is the tool that you can use, right? 4 things we talk about. We talked about association that Srila Rupa Goswami talked about there. Association can make and break. We must make sure that we enhance our association. We really look at our association in a way that is it going to help me make my spiritual progress or not? Make the changes. We are afraid of making that change. But if you want to advance, if you want to be happy, you have to make that change. Second is books. Books includes media, social media, everything. Very, very careful where we spend most of our time. Leverage the right books. We have Bhagavad Gita, we have Srimad Bhagavatam on that side of Srila Prabhupada. He has given the translation to us. Here's Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is PhD or postdoc for spirituality. That is master's. This is undergrad program that we are talking here, Bhagavad Gita. Leverage that. Chanting and mantra chanting, that is what we do here. That is what we started with. Right? There's Maha Mantra there. There's a reason we do that. There's a potency to really elevate our consciousness to the highest level. If you see the deities there on the left side, where you see the personalities with two hands up. Most of you know, some of you who don't know, that is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who came 500 years back. And Srila Rupa Goswami that I talked about is his disciple. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave this whole mission to control this mind and engage in properly so that we have the purpose of life. That is why we chant. That is why we do mantra meditation. And most importantly, another one is diet. We want to be healthy. Just be conscious of what we are eating, how fresh it is, because it impacts our consciousness completely. You must have heard that whatever you are what you eat. So be careful what you eat. We should be very, very, the diet should be very, what is the right word? Pious, yes, thank you. Right. So these are the 4 things I would like you to take away, and don't forget that everyone should have a copy of Bhagavad Gita written by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and try to take the other book, which is the Nectar of Instruction. Thank you very much. Any other comments?